Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, as always with Brother Alok. Namaste. This is the 101st in the series Explorations, and many of you have asked us to continue this. So we are today in Book 2, the book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 9, the Paradise of the Life Gods. And the pagination is the same after the 1954 editions. All subsequent editions will be the same. So this is page 233. And I begin with three quotes from Sri Aurobindo's translation in the Hymns to the Mystic Fire. Sukta 26. Let them go forward, the plenitudes with their strengths, thy fires. They have yoked the dappled mares, mingled together to reach bliss and make the mountains tremble. Before them, the life gods, omniscient, pouring the vast, inviolable. Number 5. The life gods, with their glory of fire, universal in the peoples, we desire as our brilliant and forceful guard. Great givers are they, thunderous and terrible, clothed as if in raiment of rain. They are like roaring lions. And 6, host upon host, troop upon troop, with their proclaimings of the fire, we desire the luminous energy of the life gods. They come to the sacrifice, driving their dappled horses. Their achievement cannot be taken from them. They are wise thinkers in the discoveries of knowledge. So we begin. And basically we had finished Canto 8, which is about the Ashapati has descended into night. He has encountered the sons of falsehood and darkness. And he has gone deep, deep, deep into the abyss and discovered there the secret, the magic key to the change that he is seeking. It is very strange, because normally you don't expect that the magic key will be lying there. But to use a kind of story, kind of image, that it has been stolen and kept under wraps. The key is always with us. But darkness, unconsciousness, falsehood, they have put a cover over it so that man does not discover the key. Because if he discovers the key, he would be greater than the gods. So gods, in a way, are also complicit. They fight these forces of darkness. But this key is carefully hidden there, and that's where Ashapati goes and discovers the key. And with this key now, the ascension starts again. And Mother found it also.
Yes.
At the very bottom of the inconscient.
Yes. So that's where, and there are many images she has used. One is of the serpent biting its own tail. So it's a kind of a shortcut. So instead of such a difficult ascension, which some yogis have undertaken, each of us are given a spot of darkness, a blindness, blind spot, which is in a way of speaking uniquely our own, because there is nothing our own. But there is a portion of the abyss, of the darkened or fallen nature, which is given to each one as their own cross to bear. And if we can work it through with the help of grace and a growing luminosity within us, then we touch the divine directly. It's like the challenge after which there is a victory. that is for each one of us. But for Ashupati, he has to win the victory for the cosmos, for humanity. So the challenge is also much greater. So while we are given only a small portion of this abyss, some darkness, some unconsciousness, some falsehood, over which the victory has to be won. And that reminds me when Shubindu was asked, what is the mother's victory? He says, the mother's victory is the victory of the divine in each sadhak. It is not something external, it is something internal. But as far as Ashupati is concerned, he has to fight the battle and win the victory for the creation. So we see that he enters into the very heart of hell, into the very realms of falsehood, and he wins the victory. Now what happens when you win the victory? You have gone through a long battle. You need rest. And in the secret providence of things, after each victory, you are granted a kind of rest in a wonderful place. And that place is paradise. It's interesting, this paradise comes in various religions in very strange ways. Like in Indian thought, it is said, those who die while fighting a right war, just war, for dharma, as it is said, they straight away ascend to heavens. And there are stories like that in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, because they need to rest and rejuvenate their energies. After the First World War, when the mother sees many of these people who are being transported from the war zone to the peaceful zones, she says that because of the war, they have become ready for the new consciousness. So they have gone through the war. Now in Christian mysticism, or more importantly in Greek mythology, we have the mention of this paradise where the great Greek heroes who fought a right war, they go to rest for some time. So these all paradises are temporary resting places. But strangely in Islam, it is inverted. So the just and the right war becomes a war against those who are non-believers, the infidels. And, they are told that if you commit jihad, you go to a paradise. Now this conception exists, but here we see there is an inversion. It should be a just war. So if I have to give my take on it, I would say that a Muslim who dies fighting the terrorists who are killing all kinds of, children, innocent people, yes, that Muslim soldier who fights against them will go to the paradise because he has fought in a very rightful and just war. Where the terrorists go, that has been described in Book 8, in Canto 8, The World of Falsehood, where Shobinda speaks of bombs and massacres and priests who chant Te Deums, that our enemies have fallen, we have won the victory. So that is the place reserved for them. Unfortunately, the dark spider who captures the human mind in its lethal net won't let go of its hold. So it's a strange thing that there are seemingly well-meaning youth and people are thinking it's because of money, it's because of politics. No, it's a dark net. And always this dark net is in connivance with politics and money. So it's a game which is being played, and if you understand it only superficially, that just politics and misguided youth, then you will be totally off the mark. It's the dark net which has its foundation in a completely wrong understanding of a scripture. And if you have to correct it, you have to correct it at the origin. You have to go there and correct it. And that requires tremendous courage. So this is the background of the paradise where warrior souls, the heroic souls, and Mother speaks of these heroic souls very interestingly. She says there are ordinary souls who want to escape from life. They find life very tough and they want to escape from this field of death and unconsciousness and ignorance. But there are souls who know that it is a field of falsehood and unconsciousness, but they come here to fight against it. And she says, I call them heroic souls. So basically it's a region in the vital, the mid-worlds, where the souls go to rest after having lived a life where you have had a just this battle is not just, I mean, outer battles are, of course, we still have unfortunately opportunities, but it's much more of an inner battle. And we have many such instances in, like one story that comes to my mind and which Sri Aurobindo has immortalized in his epic Urvashi. So how does he meet Urvashi? Pururavas has fought a battle. Now in this battle he has fought on the side of the gods against the demon kings. And the battle has been won. So Pururava is an earthly being. But he has fought a battle which is taking place in the midworld. So how does he fight? Obviously he has embodied within himself all the beautiful qualities. Within him he has waged a war and won. So the gods are very happy. And meanwhile, as he is coming, he sees a demon, Keshi, who is, dragging away some of these celestial powers by force, epitomized as apsaras, beings of light. And he fights and frees them, liberates them. And in gift, he gets this beautiful being of light, apsara, given to the king. Now, this is a very symbolic story, how these celestial powers, celestial energies, sometimes even embodied upon earth, and how they come to a warrior's soul to heal the wounds. And that's what we see in this paradise primarily. But first, there is a very vivid and a very beautiful description of this paradise. Many people would like to go there, but as I said, the price is very heavy. You got to fight a battle. Not the jihadi, but against the jihadis. I mean, against all that is dark, unconscious, false, terrible, all that terrorizes people, all that puts fear into their minds and hearts, all that holds them captive in a dark net. You have to fight that battle, within and without. Then you become an adhikari to enter this paradise. You can't give any other bribe. If you try it like Tishenko, you will hang in between. So, the paradise of the life gods, Book 2, Canto 9. Around him shone a great felicitous day, a lustre of some rapturous infinite. It held in the splendour of its golden laugh regions of the heart's happiness set free. So, what had happened to the heart's happiness? What really blocks it? So, in earthly life, it is never free. And it is held a captive down below by matter. It will not allow. You can't, beyond a point, be happy. Even physiologically, you start having tears in eyes if you laugh too much. The state resembles, can't contain it, because matter doesn't allow it. It will break down. People begin to jump, dance, scream, lose their balance. And on the other side, the mind's conception of good and bad. See, this is interesting about the Garden of Eden, the paradise. Not the Eden Gardens in Kolkata, but the Garden of Edens. Now, in the Garden of Eden, there is no conception of good and bad. So there is innocence, there is no shame, there is no guilt. But the moment Adam and Eve taste the fruit of knowledge, they must enter into the cycle of good and bad. Actually, it's an evolutionary movement. We'll see here, from the paradise into the little mind, and then they have to ascend. That's how the fall came. You lose, but there is a state of consciousness where you don't have a conception of good and bad. The beings of the mid-world, like Gandharvas, don't have this conception of good and bad. All the gods of the life worlds don't have the conception of good and bad. And so sometimes their behavior can be worse than human beings. But at the same time, the heart is not burdened with care and right and wrong. So the heart's happiness is set free. Intoxicated with the wine of God. This is very important to understand. The wine of God has nothing to do with the barley water or the wine made in Pondicherry or any other distillery. Wine of God is the soma, is the ananda, is the delight. And you can get it only either if you go through the intense tapasya consciously or unconscious tapasya, which is suffering. There are two kinds of tapasya which human beings engage in. Unconscious tapasya is suffering. You have no choice but to go through tapasya. Because, temporarily the capacity for bhoga is obstructed by roga. So you have to do tapasya. Lying on hospital bed is a tapasya. It's not a joke. You know it. But that, of course, all of us have to taste it sometime or the other. It's a tapasya. Sometimes we have to go through it. And other is a very conscious tapasya which the rishis engage. In normal life, we have to do both. Conscious souls, even they have to go through this because matter needs this. So, this is prepares us for soma, the delight of the wine of God. So, this is the wine which they drink and become immortal. The Rakshasas want it, the Asuras want it. But Indra guards it very zealously. Why does he guard it? Why don't? It's told that they shouldn't become immortal. The point is they are not adhikari. They are not ready. Because they are fighting like the jihadists, all kinds of wrong wars. So they can't get this. So this is the whole secret. Wine of God. Immersed in light, perpetually divine. There is no darkness. There is no shadows. A favorite and intimate of the gods. So, it's interesting. Gods with a capital G. So there is the overmind gods, and we can say that this is the vital plane, the gods of the vital plane. It just they overlook and they intervene, they protect them, they help them because they are like their children. That's how we see in Indian mythology, Ganesha and they are children of Shiva. Shiva is an overmind god, or he extends further. But Ganesha and Kartikeya are more on these vital planes where the battle takes place. But they are favorite of these great gods. Obeying the divine command to joy. We had seen in worlds of darkness that happiness is outcasted. Still people have this idea of sadhana that the less you smile, the less you laugh, the more serious a sadhak you are. And if you do anything which even gives you a slight pleasure, then it's you are doing something terrible. This idea of sin has come into the human mind. Well, people must conquer pleasure, but only so that you ascend to a greater joy and to still subtler joy till you find delight. That is the logic. But here it is inverted into the sense of sin and evil, which is not the case. So, we have this idea here. What is the command given to them? Be happy. We remember the command which Dara was given. When Dara came and asked mother, what work shall I do? Mother said, be happy. After 3 days, he said, mother, this is a difficult work. Give me something else. Imagine, came from a prince family, kingly family, but he can't. He said, this is very difficult. Give me some other work. And how it spoke about the wine. When Life Divine was out, he used to write doggerels. One of them was, Mother Almighty, but where is my tea? You are almighty, but I need a cup of tea. Or the other one, Life Divine, Mother's wine. It is out, let us shout. This used to be his. There's some very interesting stories about him. So in Golkund, he used to feed all the creatures, Jeev Jantu, Gileri, squirrel and all these. So Mona, of course, very particular and strict about all these things. So she told him not to do it. He wrote to mother. So mother called Mona and said, you know what he has written? I said, what is it? So he said, he has written that, mother, I am a prince, in my place where I lived and grew up. When I would go out, wherever I would see poor people, I would give them money like anything. Food and money. Now, I am only feeding little squirrels. Allow me this. At least his princely nature can't help it, So she said, she gave a hint that better to allow him, understand the totality of human nature. So these are this is the wine. For us, Life Divine is the wine of God. Savitri. So when Life Divine, he said, mother's wine is because Savitri was yet to come. So now this is the perfect wine of God. I can tell you this is intoxicating, and I am sure you know, and many of us know. I have met people who would not read Savitri out of fear. And I believe it's a fear which has been thrown by all kinds of forces. It is difficult, it is difficult, it is difficult. I know one particular instance, many, but one particular one where a friend of mine asked me in the morning, he said, we were together in a room, sharing a room, and he said, what are you reading? You are reading Savitri? I said, yeah. He said, I don't know, I don't understand. I said, you pick it up and start reading, you will enjoy it. Don't worry about understanding it. So, we had a brief conversation. Then, in the afternoon, I saw him looking at Savitri, picking up, keeping it. It was on the bookstall. Then, finally, I was passing by. Then he asked me, you think I can buy it? I said, of course, yes. He bought a smaller copy, that low, small print, not sure. He told me later that I brought this print because I was not sure whether I'll really understand it or not. But when he started reading, he said, I can't put it down. It is such a delight. He said, I don't know. मैं वंचित क्यों रह गया? Why I didn't, read it all these years? I said, yeah, that is why. Mother's wine. So this is the wine. So we don't have to go to paradise incidentally because the wine is right there. And there the command in these worlds is to joy. It was the sovereign of its own delight, this world, and master of the kingdoms of its force. Assured of the bliss for which all forms were made. What a marvelous line. Why did God create this world of forms and name? For joy. Space gave wide room for God's delight to be. Origin is delight. But these forms can't hold it. That is the problem. It's not that God wanted us to suffer so that we can worship Him. That's so crude. He gave us suffering so that we can pray to Him. Such a God would be a monster, not worth worshipping. But that's how religions have painted an image. Yes. And people believe in such nonsensical things. He made it for delight. But forms can't hold it. So it breaks, nature builds better and better and better and better forms. Till one day this form will taste delight. Even the body shall remember God.
Mother told me in the garden of bliss at Matrimondia,
oh wow,
they will know bliss. How would you want to leave?
Yes.
In the garden of youth, they will know youth, she said.
Absolutely. So, this is why the forms are made, and forms in these vital worlds, mid-worlds, could be moved by this delight naturally, spontaneously, unlike our earthly forms. And this is not the highest of delight, this is still in the vital world. But it gives a foretaste. Unmoved by fear and grief and the shocks of fate, and unalarmed by the breath of fleeting time. You see, human beings, at one place Mother says, human beings lead a very harassed life. And one of the reasons why we lead a harassed life is because, we begin to feel that time is passing by. It's running away. So it gives the sense of, at once the smallness. It reminds us of how brief our life is. And immediately it's like smallness. Very often I see people who come and say, but I am 70. I said, why are you living in this idea? Live in the idea that we are eternal. 70 is a bodily age in a particular birth, but life never ages. Pranabda used to say this. He said, one of the problems, the body grows old, but the vital remains the same. It never grows old. It has the same enjoyment, same things it seeks because, it is, even when it is on the path of transformation, it's more and more youthful. That creates a still bigger issue. Because you are growing like a child full of wonder and delight, but the body is not able to contain it. Yes. So we see here the forms, and there is no fleeting time. They are safe in their own sense of vastness and unbesieged by adverse circumstance. It's a safe world. They are typal worlds. So in typal worlds, we know that only forces and energies of that world will enter. So in the heavens, the demons can't enter. If they try, there is a battle. They're not supposed to. That's why Durga has to come and push them back. That's not your place. And equally, in the demonic kingdoms, the gods can't enter. Because that's where they have power. Of course, the gods don't want to enter because they know that they are fine. But demons time to time want to covet. It's their nature. Though there is wealth even in those kingdoms, dark kingdoms, safely guarded. But they know that's the difference, one of the differences between the godlike nature and the Asuric nature. But the Asuras want to covet it without deserving it. But you cannot enter because it's isolated, insulated. They are typal worlds. It breathed in a sweet, secure, unguarded ease. Here every ease is a guarded ease. Because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody can give us an assurance. Free from our body's frailty, inviting death. Even when you are sure of everything else. This matter, it's frail stuff. When it will break down, we don't know. Far from our danger zone of stumbling will. There they reach out, whatever they desire. And it doesn't matter. There is no question of error. There is a greater light which takes care of it. But here we are never sure because now the mind has come in. And we have not yet risen to the intuition of the overmind gods. So always our will is moving very insecurely. Whenever we have to make a choice, we are not too sure whether, it's the right choice to make or a wrong choice to make. Man's will stumbles. Even when it thinks it is right, it stumbles and later on it discovered that this was not the thing to be done. But that is not the case there. It needed not to curb its passionate beats, thrilled by the clasp of the warm, satisfied sense, and the swift wonder rush and flame and cry of the life impulses, red, magnificent race. Red. They literally like, the beings of these celestial kingdoms, of the vital heavens, they don't have this conception of, good and bad, should I not. If they love spontaneously and naturally. But on earth you can't do it because the mind intervenes and the body limits. So always there is a question mark and it stops, holds, heartbeats, look at it, So every time there is a rush and a thrill, you look back, look into it because it's an evolutionary world. Unlike these vital heavens which are not evolutionary world, they are given this freedom and the joy. So we have in this world, it lived in a jewel rhythm of the laughter of God and lay on the breast of universal love. In this world, the only language spoken was love. There was no hate, there was no other issue.
The next line has always been so powerful for me.
Yes.
Immune, the unfettered spirit of delight pursued his gleaming sunherds and moonflocks along the lyric speed of griefless streams in fragrance of the unearthly asphodel.
Pastured his gleaming sunherds and moonflocks.
Yes.
Reading something.
Now, yes, I looked this up when we did the lexicon of an infinite mind. I wanted to know what this spirit of delight was.
Okay.
And so I went through all of Sri Aurobindo's works. I asked the disciples, and that we have in the supplement. But I found Sri Aurobindo writes about it.
Wow.
Now that a conscious infinite is there in physical nature, we are assured by every sign, though it is a consciousness not made or limited like ours. All her constructions and motions are those of an illimitable, intuitive wisdom too great and spontaneous and mysteriously self-effective to be described as an intelligence. Of a power and will working for time in eternity, with an inevitable and forecasting movement in each of its steps, even in those steps that in their outward or superficial impetus seem to us inconscient. And as there is in her this greater consciousness and greater power, so too there is an illimitable spirit of harmony and beauty in her constructions that never fails her. Though its works are not limited by our aesthetic canons. An infinite hedonism, too, is there, an illimitable spirit of delight, of which we become aware when we enter into impersonal unity with her, and even as that in her which is terrible is a part of her beauty, that in her which is dangerous, cruel, destructive, is a part of her delight, her universal ananda. Essays in Philosophy and Yoga.
You know, the mother has given exactly the practical step to arrive at. So she speaks of, in volume 2, those who want to, read the whole passage, she speaks about, I think it is in a portion where there are some prayers of the mother, prayers and meditations in volume 2, which are probably they must have been found later on, whatever be the origin. So she speaks about how you can create impersonality in the nervous plane, which is where the senses must be able to take the rasa of all things. So she says that people normally we shrink from certain sensations, certain experiences, because we are we label these as pleasant and these are painful. That's where these are beautiful, these are terrible. But there is a so she says instead of shrinking, that's how we want to experience a state of continuous joy or pleasure. He says instead of shrinking, we should rather widen, make ourselves vast and impersonal. And she says it is possible when we do works and take all the contacts of the world without bringing in this element of like and dislike. So if we do it, then eventually we enter into the true impersonality of the vital nervous plane and experience delight in all contacts. That's how, what you have just described. Yes. The spirit of delight is in everything, including things that are terrible. And in Indian thought, it is brought out like that, Mother Kali is adored, she is, if you look at it, terrible. Who can associate mother with somebody, who is slaying without thought and, who is wearing this kind of a dress. But that delight, which is there even behind the earthquakes, behind storms, as we know, Kali is behind all upheavals, revolutions. She is there. So this was one of the process that Tantra had used to experience this delight on all levels. Even certain practices of Tantra. So certain tantrics, even Sri Ramakrishna speaks about it, because they follow a certain discipline to experience this delight in all things, to broaden themselves. So they do it very mechanically. It should come naturally, like in Isha Upanishad, Tatona Vijugupsate, one who shrinks from nothing. But the tantrics follow a practice where they particularly even go on to taste certain things which are very repulsive.
Understand.
For example, human flesh, when somebody has died. So there are still some tantrics, I know, in Ujjain and some places where they practice this kind of. But this is a very mechanical way. It's not a recommended way. But Sri Ramakrishna was told by his tantric guru, because he practiced different kinds of yoga. that you will have to eat human flesh. So he said, that's something I can't do. So he said, okay, you have to at least taste human excreta, which is part of the human system. So it becomes equivalent to human flesh. Now, even thought and idea and hearing it becomes something very dark. How could? But he did it. It was his way of overcoming this nervous shrinking and repulsion. So that's why I keep telling people that in India, you have enough, natural yoga going around. If you move through a road where you get all kinds of odors. Even this question was asked to Sri Aurobindo, unpleasant odors. Can you see the divine? He said, yes. So that's why I say India, it's a joke, jokes apart that when we grew up, we used to hear this little story that India is a country when people want to do yoga, then they enter into India, Yog Yoni. But if they want to enjoy, like paradise, so they are, born in all other places in the world, it's a Bhog Yoni. You are given some rest and respite, you enjoy life. Paradise of the life gods. But if you want to evolve further, then you come here, because the very fact you live and breathe here, on one side you will have all the great truths, on the other side you have everyday life experiences where you have to perforce. Even the most common person has to engage in yoga, otherwise you can't survive, you can't live. Yeah. So this experience of on the plane of the spirit of delight in all things is by universalizing the nervous prana and the various ways of doing it. So that's what we are talking about. And then there is this moon herds, moon flocks and sun herds. So it's a very interesting line.
Yes.
So as we know, sun is the symbol of the supramental truth and moon of the spiritual mind. So these are intuitive beams and rays and beings and forces who represent and embody it in those worlds. So where are they resting? They are resting here in these planes. So they embody something of the gleam of the moon and something of the joy of the supramental truth. Something of that. So they are herds and flocks, not the original parent. And this is what one finds here. Then he has also used the word asphodel, unearthly asphodel.
Yes.
So though it's of course a plant which we know, a lily on a spiky this, but that's not what he's referring to. It's the Greek plant which has been, in the Greek mythology, the warriors, when they went to their paradise, Elysian hills, we'll have a mention, it's a typical description of the Greek paradise. So there is a description of Asphodel Gardens where there are a lot of asphodel, which are very refreshing.
And fragrant.
Yes. Now on earth, one of the qualities of this asphodel is, fragrant. But on earth it's not known so much for its fragrance as for its properties. What it does is, it is supposed to be a cure for snake poison. Yeah, it is supposed to have its capacity to extract away snake poison. Please don't try it. I am giving a disclaimer. Just because I don't know whether it does it or not. But that's how it is believed. Maybe I have seen this kind of healing in villages and I have seen it work, but I don't know what worked, whether it was the snake was non-poison or whatever. But this is what it is believed, that it has a capacity to extract away poison. So there is something about its symbolism also, more than just the beauty. Along the lyric speed of griefless streams, in fragrance of the unearthly asphodel. So that's what he is speaking of. A silence of felicity wrapped the heavens. But look at this line here. Griefless streams. We know tears of sorrow, which are like streams. But these are streams which are always filled with the mirth and laughter of gods. So, a careless radiance smiled upon the heights. A murmur of inarticulate ravishment trembled in the winds and touched the enchanted soil. We'll just read a few more lines and then we can stop. Incessant in the arms of ecstasy, repeating its sweet involuntary note. A sob of rapture flowed along the hour. So again we see this, the music and the whole ambience, the atmosphere is full of joy. Even the sobs there is ecstatic.
Sob of rapture.
And yes, sob of rapture. And it's lovely and it's spontaneous.
Yes.
It's not something it's an involuntary note, advancing under an arch of glory and peace. Traveler on plateau and on musing ridge, as one who sees in the world magician's glass, a miracle imagery of soulscapes flee, he traversed scenes of an immortal joy and gazed into abysms of beauty and bliss. Something what Sri Aurobindo moving through Kashmir on the Takht-e-Suleiman, on the ridge of Solomon, may have seen all around tremendous beauty and had the experience of Advaita. So, something like that, where all around the soul was seeing nothing but fields filled with beauty and joy. This is the soulscape. This word is so fascinating. I love this word because we have landscapes, we have mindscapes, but this is a soulscape. The fields of the soul. And last few lines. Around him was a light of conscious suns and a brooding gladness of great symbol things. To meet him crowded plains of brilliant calm, mountains and violet valleys of the blessed, deep glens of joy and crooning waterfalls, and woods of quivering purple solitude. You see this whole description, as he is moving up and up in that land, he is suddenly watching a mountain suddenly emerge from this side and that side, which is the valley of the blessed. Again, this is the place where, again, in Greek mythology, it's a blessed place, sacred place. Particularly, the warring souls were allowed to rest there. So, this is the sacred hills which were all around. They suddenly appeared. So, they were coming close to him. The impression was as if he is not going there. They are coming close. Those plains crowding near him. Yeah. And then another very beautiful thing is purple solitude. Now, purple color is always associated with royalty. So, a kingliness. But, normally on earth, kingliness is associated with crowd. So if a man goes in Z plus security, then he is a king. A lot of retinue must accompany. But that's not how it is in the higher worlds. Alone, you look at Sri Aurobindo, king of kings, in his lonely room. So, in those worlds, the whole meaning of kingliness, you are allowed this solitude. Because while there, you still are the king of the entire. So there is...
And he uses two interesting colors, violet and purple.
Yes.
And Amal asked him once about that. And he said, well, Virgil used it, and I thought it would be good too.
Yes. And of course, these are also not exactly colors of Krishna, but especially like violet. As far as I remember, is the color of Shri Krishna's light of protection. So there is some touch of the Anandamay there, of the being of delight. And purple is a color universally used for majesty and kingliness. Even Sri Aurobindo has used it in several places.
Oh, yes.
When he speaks about the glory and the fall of life, he talks about purple suns. And then he speaks about, again in the same canto, about purple robes. So they are always colors of majesty and kingliness. So this is the place where they are given, take off these war-torn clothes, these armors, these, and you are given a purple robe. And the last two lines, below him lay like gleaming jewel thoughts, wrapped, dreaming cities of Gandharva kings. The celestial musicians, the Gandharvas. So we'll stop here and...
Very good.